a vast expanse of madness unfurls, where the fabric of reality tears and twists into incomprehensible forms. Suspended amidst this chaos, a nautiloid drifts, its warped organic hull pulsing with life. The ship seems alive, its veins coursing with eldritch energy, drawn from the far realm's chaotic tides. This vessel, both arcane and biological, is a marvel of illithid ingenuity, designed to traverse dimensions that would shatter mortal minds. Within, a Mind Flayer moves with unhurried grace, each step resonating psionically with the ship's neural network. The far realm stretches endlessly around the nautiloid, a dimension of shifting geometries and colors that defy logic. Tendrils of reality peel away, revealing fragments of other planes, only to be swallowed by the churning chaos and layers so thin that one can see the vastness that this realm encompasses. The very air inside the ship feels alive, resonating with a deep, otherworldly hum. Shadows within the corridors seem to ripple unnaturally, as if conscious of the Mind Flayer's presence. The Mind Flayer pauses at a viewport, its expression inscrutable. Through the translucent membrane, it observes an immense tendril of void energy, writhing in the distance. This energy feeds the ship's core, empowering its teleportation mechanisms. A surge of chaotic magic hums through the vessel, and the illithid feels its connection strengthen. A breach to the astral plane has been detected, an opportunity to exploit the weakened barriers between realities. The illithid floats to the star chart chamber. Here, the walls pulse with living light, psionically connected to the illithid's thoughts. The chart, a living organism, a crystalline lattice imbued with arcane and psionic energy. It shifts constantly, responding to the illithid's commands as it scans for Gith outposts. As the Mind Flayer manipulates the chart, its tendrils twitch faintly. A pulse of satisfaction reverberates through its mind as it identifies 3 possible targets. The chamber itself is a masterwork of illithid engineering. Bioluminescent filaments extend from the ceiling, casting an eerie, pulsating glow across the intricate carvings of star systems etched into the walls. Each carved star hums faintly, resonating with the psionic energy of the chamber. In a nearby chamber, 5 grotesque brainmates float in amniotic fluid, their exposed neural tissue glimmering faintly. The room thrums with psionic energy as these biological constructs amplify the illithid's connection to the elder brain. The amniotic fluid glows faintly, casting strange reflections on the smooth, obsidian-like floor. With a thought, the Mind Flayer links to the network, its consciousness expanding into the vast mental ocean of Orindal. A telepathic dialogue ensues. The Mind Flayer feels the telepathic words of the elder brain. You are tasked with progress. Report your findings. The Mind Flayer responds. 3 outposts within range. Chaos from the Far Realm breach will accelerate our success. Preparations are underway. Finally, the elder brain, with a sense of urgency, pushes forward the final communication. Efficiency is paramount. Expand the reach of the grand design. Maintain connection. The Mind Flayer withdraws from the psionic communion, the echo of the elder brain's commands lingering in its thoughts. The ship hums, resonating with the illithid's renewed focus. A subtle vibration runs through the floor, as though the nautiloid itself acknowledges the urgency of its master's mission. The Mind Flayer glides into a shadowed chamber where pods line the walls, their surfaces translucent and rippling like liquid glass. Each pod is a grotesque cradle of transformation, containing captives whose fates are sealed. Humanoid forms suspended in a ghastly stasis, their expressions frozen in terror or pain, await their metamorphosis. Tadpoles swim lazily in pools beneath the pods, their tiny forms holding the potential for horrific evolution. The illithid inspects each pod, its thoughts calculating the success of each ceremorphosis. It pauses at one pod, tapping the surface gently with a tendril. Inside, the captive stirs faintly, a futile gesture. The chamber reeks of damp organic material and faint chemical tangs from the stasis fluid. Lights from bioluminescent fungi along the walls flicker rhythmically, casting grotesque shadows across the pods. The faint hum of psionic energy permeates the air. Above, translucent veins pulse faintly, carrying nutrients and psionic energy to sustain the nascent tadpoles. Nearby, 7 chairs stand in perfect symmetry. The arrangement is no accident, the symmetry comforting to the illithid's alien mind. Occupying each is a thrall, their skulls surgically open to expose the delicate brain within. Intellect devourers nest within the empty cavities, pulsating as they communicate with their master. These creatures are extensions of the illithid's will, each one a servant. The Mind Flayer monitors the rest of the thrall's process, its thoughts detached and clinical. The tadpole will soon consume each of the host's brains, replacing it with a nascent illithid intellect. This is not cruelty, it is simply necessity, a means to ensure the survival of the species. The Mind Flayer repeats this process across multiple pods, each act as calculated and routine as the last. A side passage leads to a shrine, a sanctum devoted to Eisensign, the great brain. Stone tendrils twist upward, each engraved with psionic runes that glow faintly in the dim light. The room exudes an oppressive aura of reverence, a psionic echo of the deity's incomprehensible power. Mind Flayer clerics kneel in deep concentration, maintaining the shrine's sacred presence. Their chants are silent, resonating only within the collective consciousness of those present. The illithid pauses to offer its own psionic tribute, a silent prayer that reverberates through the neural network of the shrine. The Mind Flayer internally offering words within its own mental structure. Eisensign, guide our purpose. Strengthen the colony's reach. The room grows colder, an acknowledgement of the deity's distant awareness. The Mind Flayer departs, its mind focused on the tasks ahead. Around the shrine, subtle movements of stone tendrils suggest that Eisensign's influence is never dormant, always watching from its subterranean realm, known as the Caverns of Thought. The ship's tranquility shatters as alarms pulse through the corridors, a deep, resonant tone that vibrates the very walls. Gith riders astride red crimson-scaled dragons streak through the void, fire licking at the nautiloid's hull. Their war cries are silent in the vacuum, but the intensity of their attack is unmistakable. The Mind Flayer moves quickly, its thoughts commanding the ship's defenses. Each command is precise, issued through a network of psionic relays that connect every corner of the ship. The atmosphere inside the nautiloid shifts, becoming charged with a palpable sense of urgency. Intellect, devourers, scuttle through the ship, probing for breaches and intruders, their psionic minds relaying vital information. The nautiloid itself seems to react, its organic structure reshaping to block passages and funnel the attackers into traps. The hull warps, deploying illusions that twist space and light, disorienting the attackers. Arcane traps, infused with psionic energy, spring to life, manifesting walls of force and mind-shattering blasts. The Mind Flayer moves with purpose, a calm conductor amidst chaos. Above the battlefield, the dragons unleash torrents of flame, their riders directing the assault with precision. But the nautiloid's defenses are formidable. Tentacles lash out, grasping and crushing anything within reach. The Mind Flayer coordinates its forces, sending thralls to key locations, while it channels its psionic power into the ship's mainframe. The battle is a symphony of destruction, each moment meticulously orchestrated by the illithid's cold intellect. Inside the core, the Mind Flayer interfaces directly with the nautiloid's central mind. Its tentacles twitch and writhe as it sends a cascade of psionic commands, synchronizing the ship's systems for a planar blink. The air around the nautiloid begins to distort, colors bleeding into one another as reality bends. The Githyanki attackers press their assault, but their efforts are in vain. With a sudden surge of energy, the nautiloid vanishes. For a brief moment, it exists outside the confines of space and time, its form stretched across the astral sea like a shadow. Then, just as suddenly it reappears. This time near the targeted Githyanki outpost, the ship's tentacles retract, and the Mind Flayer surveys its new surroundings. The attackers are gone, left behind in the chaotic wake of the blink. But there is no time for celebration. The Mind Flayer immediately begins preparations for the next phase of its plan. The Mind Flayer summons its kin, and the Duergar slaves aboard the nautiloid. These Duergar, twisted and enslaved long ago, are fiercely loyal, or perhaps simply too broken to resist. Younger Mind Flayers, still honing their psionic abilities, gather at the call of their elder. Together, they form a strike force tasked with a critical mission: capturing a Githzerai of great psionic resistance. In the war chamber, the Mind Flayer projects an image of the outpost onto the walls. The Githzerai's location is marked, a fortress deep within a psionically charged rift. The Illithid outlines the plan without speaking a word, its thoughts transmitted directly into the minds of its subordinates. The Duergar will form the vanguard, drawing the Githzerai's defenses into disarray, while the Mind Flayers strike with precision and psionic fury. As the strike force blinks into the rift, the alien serenity of the Githzerai outpost comes into view. Monastic structures carved from smooth stone rise in graceful arcs, their surfaces glowing faintly with psionic wards. At the center of the largest hall, the coffin stands upright, its translucent surface refracting light in shifting, hypnotic patterns. Around it kneel Githzerai monks, their heads bowed in silent prayer. The Mind Flayer and its forces approach silently, hidden by a psionic shroud. The Duergar form a perimeter, ready to intercept any reinforcements. The younger Mind Flayers prepare to strike, their tentacles twitching in anticipation. For a moment, it seems as though the monks remain unaware of the impending attack. But, as the Illithids close in, the monks' eyes snap open simultaneously, glowing with an inner psionic light. Their prayers shift into a resonant chant, and a ripple of psychic energy sweeps through the chamber, disrupting the Illithid's shroud, and the battle begins. The Githzerai move with a fluid grace, their bodies seeming to blur as they sidestep the Duergar's clumsy charges. Each movement is a blend of martial precision and psionic mastery. One monk raises a hand, and an invisible wave of force hurls two Duergar into the far wall. Another leaps impossibly high, landing in the midst of the younger Mind Flayers and unleashing a psionic pulse that disrupts their coordination. The Mind Flayer observes the chaos with cold detachment, calculating the monk's strategy. These are no ordinary warriors. Their connection to the astral plane has honed their minds into weapons of unparalleled resilience. One monk, standing before the coffin, seems to radiate an aura of calm even as the battle rages around them. Their hands move in intricate patterns, reinforcing the psionic wards that protect the coffin and its occupant. The Illithid strikes. With a focused burst of psionic energy, it sends a shockwave through the chamber, momentarily disrupting the monk's cohesion. The younger Mind Flayers take advantage of the opening, unleashing psychic blasts that stagger their opponents. The Duergar press forward, their weapons crackling with psionic interference designed to weaken the monks' mental defenses. The monks retaliate fiercely. One of them engages the Mind Flayer directly, their mind a fortress of psionic resistance. The two engage in a battle of wills, their thoughts clashing like titanic waves in a storm. For a moment, the monk gains the upper hand, forcing the Illithid to retreat slightly. But the Mind Flayer is patient. It channels its energy into a sustained assault, unraveling the monk's defenses layer by layer. As the last of the monks fall, the Mind Flayer turns its attention to the coffin. The psionic wards surrounding it pulse erratically, weakened by the battle. With a precise gesture, the illithid channels its energy into the wards, unraveling them one by one. The crystalline surface of the coffin begins to crack, revealing the figure within. The Githzerai monk inside is unconscious, their body suspended in a faintly glowing liquid. Even in this state, their mind resists. The illithid senses a barrier, a final layer of psionic defense that must be breached. It steps closer, its tentacles twitching as it focuses all its energy on breaking through. After a tense moment, the barrier collapses. The monk is encased in a stasis field, their resistance finally subdued. The illithid's gaze turns toward the heart of the stronghold, and they progress inwards. They find the other target of the mission, a Zythisk, which hums with barely contained psionic energy. This ancient device, an amalgamation of Gith and illithid technology, is a monument to mental manipulation. Its crystalline structure refracts the ambient light into shifting patterns, a kaleidoscope that calms and disorients. The enhanced version within the stronghold radiates an aura of immense power, its modifications designed to probe the deepest recesses of the mind. The Mind Flayer pauses, analyzing the Zythisk's potential. A thought ripples through the psionic network. The Mind Flayer ponders to itself. This construct may hold the key to refining ceremorphosis. Resistance will be futile once adapted. The device pulses, its energy signatures weaving into the illithid's mental calculations. Capturing the enhanced Zythisk becomes paramount. With precision, the Mind Flayer coordinates its forces, using thralls to breach the inner sanctum, while Duergar engineers disable defensive wards. The illithid's personal intellect devourer leads the charge, its presence nullifying the now minor Gith resistance. Once secured, the Zythisk reveals fragments of its secrets, methods to fortify tadpole implantation against mental resistance. The illithid envisions the implications, a new era for the Elder Brain's expansion. The nautiloid, now laden with captives, and the Zythisk, blinks back to Orindal, leaving the astral plane behind. It emerges in the shadowy depths of the Underdark, where the city of Orindal awaits. This ancient metropolis is a monument to the illithid's psionic dominance, its spires and chambers carved from the bones of long-forgotten titans. At its heart lies the Elder Brain, a vast pulsating mass of neural tissue that serves as the colony's hive mind. The Mind Flayer directs the ship into one of the city's organic harbours. The Githzerai captive, still encased in a stasis field, is transported to the central chamber. Here, beneath the faint glow of bioluminescent fungi, the Elder Brain resides in its briny pool. Its presence is overwhelming, a psychic weight that fills the minds of all who approach. The Mind Flayer kneels, not out of reverence, but as a gesture of unity. Its thoughts merge with the Elder Brain's, forming a seamless connection. Through this communion, it conveys the events of the day, the mapping of the stars, the capture of the Githzerai, and device, the successful evasion of the Githyanki attackers. The Elder Brain responds, its voice a chorus of alien tones that resonate directly in the Mind Flayer's mind. Your success is noted. Present the Zythisk. The Mind Flayer complies, presenting the device and detailing its enhancements. The Elder Brain's tendrils reach out, enveloping the Zythisk in a web of psionic energy. For a moment, the chamber is silent as the Elder Brain processes the influx of knowledge. The Elder Brain then telepathically puts its thoughts to the Mind Flayer. This discovery advances the grand design. Resistance will crumble. you have served well. The elder brain ponders further, then with a calm authority states, the Githzerai and Zythisk will provide valuable insights into the resistance of their kind. You have advanced our purpose, and by doing so have given our kind an advantage that will bring progress in the coming days. The Mind Flayer withdraws, its role complete. The elder brain continues to analyze the captive, its vast intelligence unraveling secrets that no mortal could comprehend. As the Mind Flayer departs, it feels neither pride nor satisfaction, only the cold certainty of progress. The Mind Flayer then hovers alone through the winding corridors of its domain, the air thick with the faint hum of psionic energy. The chamber at the end of the hall opens into a vast, vaulted room. The Mind Flayer's throne stands at its center, carved from a single piece of psionically infused stone. It is an artifact of the old empire, its jagged edges seeming to warp and shift in the flickering light. It then ascends the steps and takes its place, its tentacles twitching in quiet thought. Here, in the stillness of its sanctum, the illithid allows its mind to wander. The day's events replay in perfect clarity. The Githyanki ambush, the assault on the Githzerai outpost, the capture of the psionically resistant monk. Each moment is analysed, each decision scrutinised for its efficiency. But even as it reflects on these accomplishments, a question gnaws at the edges of its consciousness, a question it dares not share with its kin or even the elder brain. The Mind Flayer's gaze drifts to the murals that adorn the walls. They depict the illithid's lost empire, a civilization that spanned planes of existence, its influence extending into the farthest reaches of the multiverse. The Mind Flayer can feel the weight of history pressing down on it, the echoes of a time when they were gods in all but name. But will the grand design truly restore that glory? It is a question that lingers in the dark recesses of the illithid's mind. Their current existence, though formidable, is a shadow of what once was. The elder brain speaks of inevitability, of a future where the illithids reign supreme once more. And yet, doubt creeps in, an alien but undeniable sensation. The Mind Flayer's tentacles still, its crimson eyes narrowing as it considers the unknown. It has done its part today, advancing the grand design one step further. Yet, the future remains uncertain. A void as inscrutable as the far realm itself. It turns its head slowly, the question forming in its mind like a whispered echo. What next?